maslahi ya wanunuzi na wawekezaji yanazingatiwa kwa lengo la kuzuia ongezeko la bei ya bidhaa za petroli. Na mswada wa kurekebisha sheria kuhusu mfumo na kanuni za kuorodhesha miji na majiji pia unatarajiwa kusomwa kwa mara ya pili, na mswada huo unaratibu kwamba jiji linafaa kuwa na idadi ya watu isiyopungua 250,000 na mipango kama vile mpango wa mpango wa ustawi wa kiuchumi, muundo msingi wa maji na mitaro ya kupitishia maji taka, taa za barabarani, maeneo ya makaburi, uchukuzi wa umma, miongoni mwa masharti mengine. Nayo manispaa inahitajika kuwa na watu wasiopungua 50,000 na miji inahitajika kuwa na idadi ya watu isiyopungua 10,000. Wakati huo wabunge wanaendelea kuingia ukumbini kwa lengo la kuhakikisha kwamba wajibu ambao umeorodheshwa siku hii ya kikao maalum unatekelezwa kwa kanuni na taratibu za bunge la taifa, hususan baada ya Spika Justin Muturi kuahirisha kikao hiki kwa dakika 30. Lengo hasa ni lipi? Ni kuwapa wabunge fursa ya kujifahamisha yaliyomo kwenye ripoti mbili ambazo tayari zimewasilishwa bungeni, na kila mbunge alikubalika na kwa manufaa ya Wakenya. Kumbuka, yote haya yanahitaji kushughulikiwa na wabunge wasiopungua 233. Wabunge wasiopungua 233 ndio wanaostahili kushughulikia utaratibu huu wote ili ukubalike kwa misingi, kanuni na arudhi za bunge la taifa pamoja na katiba ya nchi, ili kuzuia mianya kwa yeyote kuwasilisha kesi labda mahakamani kupinga kwamba taratibu zilikiukwa. Kwa hivyo ushirikiano kati ya spika pamoja na afisi ya katibu wa bunge, yote afisi hizo zote zinahakikisha kwamba mchakato huu mzima unatekelezwa inavyostahili. Ni saa 5 kasoro dakika 22 saa zetu za kanda ya Afrika Mashariki. Iwapo umefungulia redio yako sasa hivi au runinga yako ya KBC Channel 1 sasa hivi, ni kwamba hiki ni kikao maalum, kikao cha bunge la taifa. Ilivyo desturi, shughuli ya siku ya Alhamisi hufanyika kuanzia saa 8:30, lakini leo baada ya azimio kupitishwa wiki iliyopita, kuna andaliwa kikao maalum kwa lengo la kuhakikisha kwamba sekta ya petroli inazingatia maslahi ya Wakenya pamoja na wafanyi biashara na wawekezaji kwenye sekta hiyo. Kumbuka, yote haya yametokea baada ya rais kutotia saini mswada wa sekta ya fedha, ambapo alitoa kauli zake chungu nzima za kumfanya kose kutia saini mswada huo kwa kuegemea utaratibu uliopo, na rais alikataa kutia saini mswada huo baada ya wabunge kuondolea mbali ushuru ziada wa thamani wa 16%, yani VAT, kwa bidhaa za petroli, huku wakiwasilisha taarifa bungeni ya kupendekeza ushuru huo upunguzwe hadi 8%. Rais pia aliwasilisha mapendekezo mengine ya kukidhia nakisi kwenye bajeti. Kulingana na kifungu cha 115 sehemu ya 4 cha katiba, endapo bunge litakatalia mbali taarifa ya rais kuhusu mswada wa sekta ya fedha, basi litahitaji thuluthi mbili ya wabunge. Hawa ni 233 nilivyokuarifu hapo awali. Kwa hivyo wakiwa 232, basi shughuli nzima itakuwa imesambaratika. Kando na hayo, pia kuna shughuli nyingine ambazo zimeorodheshwa kushughulikiwa leo. Kwa mfano, kuna mswada wa kurekebisha sheria kuhusu mfumo na kanuni za kuorodhesha miji na majiji, na pia unatarajiwa kusoma mara ya pili, na mswada huo unaratibu kwamba jiji linafaa kuwa na idadi ya watu isiyopungua 250,000 na mipango kama vile mpango wa ustawi wa kiuchumi, muundo msingi wa maji na mitaro ya kupitisha maji taka, taa za barabarani, maeneo ya makaburi, uchukuzi wa umma, miongoni mwa masharti mengine. Nayo manispaa inahitajika kuwa na watu wasiopungua 50,000 na miji inahitajika kuwa na idadi ya watu isiyopungua 10,000. Pia kuna mswada nambari 14 wa mwaka huu wa kurekebisha vifungu 10 vya sheria ya sekta ya afya. Baadhi ya vifungu hivyo ni pamoja na sheria kuhusu matibabu ya kutumia miale na sheria kuhusu wahudumu wa afya na wataalamu wa meno, na sheria nyingine ni kuhusu wauguzi, chuo cha kutoa mafunzo ya utabibu hapa nchini, sheria kuhusu wataalamu wa lishe, sheria ya shirika la kitaifa la usambazaji dawa, na sheria kuhusu wataalamu wa utoaji ushauri nasaha. Vilevile kuna sheria kuhusu wataalamu wa tiba maungo na wasimamizi wa habari na kumbukumbu za sekta ya afya, na hatimaye sheria kuhusu mafunzo, usajili na utoaji leseni kwa maafisa wa kliniki. Kumbuka shughuli hii ilipaswa kuanza saa 4:30, lakini sasa hivi ni kwamba zimesalia dakika 18 kutimia saa 5. Wabunge wakiwa tayari wanaendelea kujifahamisha au wamejifahamisha zaidi kuhusu ripoti 2 ambazo zimewasilishwa leo katika kikao hiki maalum cha Bunge la Taifa, ambacho chimbuko lake ni hatua ya rais kutotia saini mswada unaohusu sekta ya fedha. Nilivyokufahamisha awali ni kwamba shughuli sasa hivi haijaanza rasmi, na shughuli za kawaida ziliahirishwa na Spika wa Bunge la Taifa Justin Muturi kwa muda wa dakika 30 kuwapa nafasi wabunge fursa au kuwapa nafasi wabunge kujifahamisha yaliyomo kwenye ripoti 2 ambazo zimewasilishwa bungeni. Na ripoti zenyewe ni kwamba ripoti ya kwanza imewasilishwa na mwenyekiti wa kamati ya fedha na mipango ya kitaifa Joseph Limo kuhusu bajeti ya ziada kwa kipindi cha mwaka 2018 hadi mwaka wa 2019. Spika ameingia ukumbini.
Order members, at the request of some of you, we have extended the period we were to suspend the period of short break by a whole 15 minutes. And just to draw your attention to the circulation of a special sitting supplementary on the paper. And if you look at it, because of that extension, it has necessitated that we have yet another procedural motion being under number 9 because of that time that we had to take, which was necessitated by the fact that the the various reports and to the Secretariat and to make as many copies as possible for members. So we'll go to that order.
Order number 9, procedural motion, extension of sitting time.
Leader of Majority.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg to move that pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order 30, subsection 3A, this House resolves to extend the sitting time for the House this morning until 1:30 p.m. Speaker, this is after, I'm sure, consulting with our technical team, that based on order number, for us to finish order number 10, which is 2 hours, and order number 11, which will take 1 hour, then those 2 items will take us to close to 1:30. And that is why the House usually rise at 1 p.m. So that we can accommodate an extra 30 minutes so that we deal with the order number 10 and order number 11, which based on the procedural motion that the House passed in the morning, the timelines will take us to 1:30. So that's why we have order number 9. And because I don't want to use that time or eat into that time, I move and ask the Leader of Minority to second.
Honorable John Bandi.
I second.
Honourable members, I propose a question, which is that pursuant to the provision Standing Order number 30, subsection 3, paragraph 1, paragraph A, this House resolves to extend the sitting time of the House this morning until 1:30 p.m. I put the question, which is that pursuant to the provision Standing Order number 30, subsection 3, paragraph A, this House resolves to extend the sitting time of the House this morning until 1:30 p.m. Will as many as have opinion say aye? Aye. As many as the contrary opinion say no? The ayes have it.
Order number 10, motion, consideration of the report of the Budget and Appropriations Committee on the supplementary estimates for the financial year 2018-2019, general debate.
Chair of Budget and Appropriations Committee.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Now I wish to move the motion that this House adopts the report of the Budget and Appropriations Committee on the supplementary estimates, for the financial year 2018-2019, laid on the table of the House on Thursday, September 20th, 2018, and pursuant to the provisions of Article 223 of the Constitution and Standing Order 243, approves the changes to the votes programs contained in the schedule to the reports of the Budget and Appropriations Committee. Honorable Speaker, let me begin by pointing out that the report did not have a schedule, but the schedule, Honorable Speaker, is being circulated. Honorable Speaker, the report is being circulated. And allow me to take that again on moving that the House adopts the report of the Budget and Appropriations Committee on the supplementary estimates for the financial year 2018-2019, laid on the table of the House on Thursday, September 20th, 2018, and pursuant to the provisions of Article 223 of the Constitution and Standing Order 243, approves 1, a reduction of the total recurrent expenditure for financial year 2018-2019 by Kenya shillings 9,063,228,418 in respect of the votes as contained in the attached schedule. 2, a reduction of the total capital expenditure for the financial year 2018-2019 by Kenya shillings 28,540,434,000 in respect of the votes as contained in the attached schedule. 3, an overall reduction in the total budget for the financial year 2018-2019 by Kenya shillings 37,662,418 in respect of the votes as contained in the schedule. 4, an increase of Kenya shillings 1.5 billion to the judiciary budget. And 5, that the attached schedule forms the basis of the enactment of the Supplementary Appropriation Act of 2018-2019. With that, Honorable Speaker, as I mentioned, the schedule, the Sergeant at Arms will be circulating it, is being photocopied. And I wish, Honorable Speaker, to point out a few items on the report. Honorable Speaker, it is important for the House to appreciate why it was necessary to have a supplementary budget in the second month into the financial year, Honorable Speaker. And it's good to let members know that when we passed the Appropriations Bill in June this year, there were arrangements and agreements with our development partners, Honorable Speaker, and you know what has happened in the recent past. We had committed, and it is good to appreciate that this country, Honorable Speaker, is yet to get a balanced budget in terms of it being able to finance all our expenditures with our taxes. And Honorable Speaker, the fact that later today we'll be considering other issues on the finance bill touching on taxation, it is important to note that in the absence of us as a country being able to raise finances through taxation by further imposing higher taxes on our people, we may need, in one way or the other, to be able to finance our budget to get support from our development partners and also through domestic borrowing. And our fiscal deficit, as at the time we passed the Appropriations Bill, it was projected that our fiscal deficit would be at about 5.7%, but because of additional expenditures that were accommodated during the appropriations, we burst that fiscal deficit to about way above 6%. The consequences of that, Honorable Speaker, is that with time, the IMF, although government is still in negotiations with the IMF, stood down the standby credit to this country. And Honorable Speaker, the ramifications of these things, and it's good to mention these things, Honorable Speaker, that with this standby credit not being there, Honorable Speaker, we are okay as a country because of the reserves that we have, our foreign exchange reserves. But these reserves, Honorable Speaker, are backed mostly by diaspora remittances. And therefore, it is important, Honorable Speaker, that government continues to engage with the IMF and other development partners to ensure that this standby facility is there in case of any eventualities. As we are told, it is like an insurance policy that the country takes. Therefore, Honorable Speaker, it is important for us to be able to balance our expenditure and our revenues. And Honorable Speaker, this supplementary budget has basically been occasioned by changes that we do in the finance bill, changes that have occasioned a reduction in our projected revenues for this financial year. And therefore, we have considered all the proposals that were brought by the National Treasury, and we had 4 meetings yesterday, Honorable Speaker, including a meeting with the Judicial Service Commission, with the Parliamentary Service Commission, and with the National Treasury. And we had very lengthy negotiations up to late in the wee hours of the night, Honorable Speaker, to be able to strike a balance between our revenues and our expenditure and ensure that in the spirit of give and take, we are able to reduce our expenditure in a manner that will ensure we not only balance our budget, but we also achieve the 5.7% fiscal deficit that will guarantee us an opportunity to be able to continue engaging with our development partners, to be able not just to access the standby credit. Honorable Speaker, Kenyans have been concerned of the huge public debt that is there, Honorable Speaker. It's good to note that the Eurobond, Honorable Speaker, that we took in 2014 matures next year, I think in April or June of next year. The syndicated loan, the same. Our current budget for this financial year had a financing gap of 562 billion, which will be financed both by domestic and foreign borrowing. And for us to be able to access that foreign borrowing, for investors to have confidence in this economy, we must, as a country, show that we have the fiscal discipline that we committed to those investors, Honorable Speaker. And therefore imperative that we strive in that spirit of give and take to be able to cut back on some of the expenditures that may be important but not urgent. And there is no expenditure, Honorable Speaker, that we have cut back that we are saying is not important. It just may not be urgent. Honorable Speaker, there were various proposals, some even which touched on issues that touch on our constituents, like the national government CDF, which the National Treasury had proposed to cut by 6 billion shillings. In the same spirit of give and take, Honorable Speaker, we were able to engage with the National Treasury, and we have only reduced our national government CDF by 2.4 billion shillings from 35.7 billion to 33.3 billion shillings, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, that if you calculate, Honorable Speaker, assures each and every constituency in this country at least a minimum of 110 million shillings. And we are not saying, Honorable Speaker, that this is the end of business in terms of appropriating money, because we have an opportunity. Should we ensure that we guarantee that we remain with the fiscal discipline that we have committed, Honorable Speaker, we have an opportunity to now allow our economy to thrive again, be able to generate more revenues, allow private business to thrive, raise more revenues, and hopefully, by the time we come from the long recess after December, with improved revenues, Honorable Speaker, we are likely to even do a second supplementary budget which offers
just a minute, Honorable Ichung'wa. Honourable members, as you appreciate, this is the chamber of the National Assembly plenary. You may not agree with the presentation being made, but I will look with disfavor any member that openly assumes or transforms this place into a public barasa. So be warned that Standing Orders 107 is likely to kick in the course of today. So please, you may not agree, but you will have an opportunity to also say what it is that you want to say. But please let us for once show the country that we listen to each other. We may disagree, but disagree honorably. That is what is expected of us. So, honourable members, this is just to request that let us allow reasonable engagement. Nothing is cast in stone. You will have the opportunity to deal with this motion as best you understand. Proceed, Honourable Ichung'wa.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Honourable Speaker, I was pointing out that we have an opportunity, and we are all aware because we are the ones who passed these laws, especially on the NGCDF, that it is a function of our national government share of revenue. And therefore, should revenues rise, automatically CDF rises or CDF grows with the growth of revenue. And what we have done, Honourable Speaker, we have ensured that the projected national government share of revenue of about 1.33 trillion, 2.5% of that is what you find that we have taken in accordance with the statutes and the law that created CDF to ensure that we are in line with the law. Nothing less than what is stipulated in law. Honourable Speaker, the other matter that had been reduced was national government affirmative action, which had a proposal to be reduced by 2 billion to 600 million shillings, Honourable Speaker, and we have been able to add back that by a further figure of about 1.5 billion to 2.1 billion Kenya shillings. Honourable Speaker, the judiciary, in line even with what the President said in his memorandum, in supporting the fight against corruption and ensuring that we have a free and independent judiciary. And Honourable Speaker, we appreciate that we cannot have an independent judiciary without financial autonomy and financial independence. We have added back to our judiciary a sum of Kenya shillings, 1.5 billion shillings, to ensure, especially the completion of courts, to ensure there is enough court space to prosecute the corruption cases that are ongoing and other cases that have been lying in our courts without being finalized. On the Parliamentary Service Commission, Honourable Speaker, there was a proposal to reduce the parliamentary budget, especially on recurrent expenditure, by a figure of 5 billion shillings, which would have translated to a reduction of up to 40% of our recurrent expenditure on various expenditure items. Honourable Speaker, we have rationalized this together with all other departments in government. And I wish to thank the NASA coalition, and especially the ODM political party, who in their ODM did call, and I saw that, Honourable Speaker, for real austerity measures. And in that spirit, because the minority leader is a member of the Budget and Appropriations Committee, we did ensure that we have real austerity measures cutting across all departments of government, be it Parliament, be it the judiciary, be it the executive. And we have rationalized this to ensure that our cuts average about 15 to 20% on recurrent expenditure items. I think it's important, Honorable Speaker, to mention that some of the things that related to members of Parliament that we did in April have not been touched because they were in personal emoluments, issues to do with house allowances, issues to do with members' compensation for mileage are in personal emoluments, and we've ensured that are not touched because those are things that touch on personal emoluments, salaries and wages of Kenyans, because members of Parliament are Kenyans, and therefore those issues will not be touched, Honorable Speaker. The items that we have touched on, Honorable Speaker, I have said are those issues.
All the members, at least if you do not want to listen, I want to hear. I want to hear.
Thank you. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I was saying what has been touched basically is on issues to do with vote items on travel, especially domestic travel and foreign travel, but to a large extent on foreign travel, Honorable Speaker. And therefore, and issues to do with training, those also have been touched, and it is across the board to ensure that there is fairness across the board, be it in the executive, in all ministries. And therefore, I want also to call on government and all of us in our departmental committees, in the ministries that we oversight, to ensure, because that is our cardinal responsibility, Speaker, as members of Parliament, to ensure that these austerity measures become real and there is no wastage at all in all the departments that we oversight. Honorable Speaker, with those very few or many remarks, because of time, I wish to request members that in the spirit, I said, of give and take, that we do understand where we are coming from as a country. We understand, Honorable Speaker, that in the absence of a balanced budget in this country being able to, I would beg for 2 minutes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I was saying, in the absence of a balanced budget, we were able to finance all our operations in government through taxation. Honorable Speaker, it is important that we ensure that the fiscal deficit that we are committed to with our development partners to be able to finance not just this budget, but also future budgets, Honorable Speaker. And not just the financing of future budgets, Honorable Speaker, to create confidence in the economy, Honorable Speaker. For any foreign investor to be able to come and invest in this country, we must be able to demonstrate by action that we are indeed a disciplined country in terms of fiscal management. And therefore wish to beg members to do support this, this motion and these supplementary appropriations that have been tabled. And I wish to ask the Leader of Majority to second. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Leader of Majority.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, allow me from the onset to appreciate the expenditure manner in which the Budget and Appropriation Committee has executed its mandate in the processing of the supplementary estimates number 1 for the financial year 2018-2019 in line with Article 223 of the Constitution and Section 44 of the Public Finance Management Act 2012 and Standing Order 243. Mr. Speaker, this is the first supplementary estimates that is coming before this House for the financial year 2018-2019. Mr. Speaker, let me say it, this is a very unique supplementary budget as it is being considered barely 3 months into the financial year, and it is in the best interest of the country so as to achieve our development agenda and the Big Four. Mr. Speaker, this House recalls in June of this year, we approved a total expenditure of 2.53 trillion that resulted in a fiscal deficit that was to be financed through both domestic borrowing and foreign borrowing. And this House, Mr. Speaker, approved in August 2 this year the Finance Bill 2018 with various measures which could affect. Speaker, my deputy is out of order. He's speaking on the phone when his leader and the House is listening. So My deputy, Mr. Speaker, she is out of order, but he has complied. But because, Mr. Speaker, because of age, he is consulting the elders on the position he's going to take. So, Mr. Speaker, this House also, in August, we have approved the Finance Bill 2018 with various measures which could affect the estimated revenue collection. Mr. Speaker, the Constitution provides that the National Treasury should seek approval of expenditure from Parliament within 2 months after the withdrawal of money from the Consolidated Fund, primarily for the purpose of the Supplementary Appropriation. However, Mr. Speaker, the amount spent should not be more than 10% of the total sum appropriated by Parliament unless a special circumstance where Parliament has approved a higher percentage. Indeed, Mr. Speaker, and the Chair of Budget Committee will agree with me that this supplementary budget is seeking to change approximately 1.5% of the approved budget that went through this House. So what is in this supplementary estimate, Mr. Speaker? Speaker, for the financial year 2018-2019 budget, the deficit is 55.10 billion. And this amount that we are going to do a reduction on decreases 11.72 billion for the recurrent expenditure. And that is why the bulk of the Parliamentary Service Commission. Speaker, I want us to engage each other this afternoon and this morning from a point of facts and figures. I am a member of Parliament for a start, Mr. Speaker, apart from being. So CDF is key to me. Mileage is key to me. House allowance is key to me. So Speaker, those items have not been touched. And anybody who has contrary view, let him provide that evidence. Because the Budget Office in Bunge, in collaboration with our Budget and Appropriation Committee, set until 2 a.m. last night, Mr. Speaker. So recurrent means domestic travel, that is our travel here going to Mombasa, a bit of foreign travel, and of course, Mr. Speaker, the element of the tendering process in order to complete this building. And Mr. Speaker, let us be very honest. We are this House. We can still call for, and I'm sure by next year, January, February, the minister will bring a supplementary estimates again. And we have the powers, based on the revenue that will be projected, to say, Mr. Minister, now that the revenue has gone up, the law says 2.5% of that revenue must be allocated for CDF. Mr. Speaker, we as leaders must show the goodwill. Parliament cannot be part and parcel of the country moving forward. If the Kenyan people will be to pay part of the 16% and government will have a reduction, then Parliament, in our own way, must also show the goodwill. We are part and parcel of the leadership. Mr. Speaker, for the affirmative action of our serious women leaders, you remember the only thing you have lost was the 300 million that we included in the last budget when we found an extra. And I was the one who moved that amendment. The other amount for last financial year is what you are going to get. So that 300, if and when is available and the revenue increases, you are here, we will increase. But you know, there are people who are peddling, Mr. Speaker, including the media was saying 2 billion. In fact, the National Treasury, by reducing the affirmative action by 2 billion, it's like they were closing it. They were closing it. And I want to tell Honorable Rotich that they don't go that route. You know, at least CDF, it was 6 billion, and now we have reduced it. But for the women, they removed 2 billion. And we want to thank the members of the Budget and Appropriation Committee for returning the 2.1 billion for our sisters in the counties. Mr. Speaker, to ensure that there is, and this, Mr. Speaker, it is in law that this House has an obligation to balance the budget. It is in the PFM Act, Section 55, subsection 4. Mr. Speaker, so that we cannot allow the President to sign Appropriation Bill 2018-2019 or the Finance Bill if the budget is not balancing. He will be committing an illegality, and that's why the president returned the finance bill. So, Mr. Speaker, all of us together, we represent the people out there. And Mr. Speaker, I want to ask our leaders, when we represent the people, let us lead the people. Let us not lead the people from the middle when you are inside the crowd. You need to be ahead of the leader, of the people. And Mr. Speaker, today, from my experience as a member of parliament, today they might tell you do this, but 2 months down the line, they will tell you where is the road, where is CDF, where is electricity. They will ask you. So we should not give, a Piriton or Panadol for something that we should cure with amoxicillin or augmentin. It's an antibiotic, it is a virus. And so, Mr. Speaker, let us not give, short-term treatment. Let us treat what we are facing as a country. And as a country, Mr. Speaker, let us even look at the debt. I agree. Let us look at our debt level. The Finance Committee, the Budget Committee will agree. Finally, Mr. Speaker, as I support, Mr. Speaker, finally, there are people who are blaming the handshake. The principal cardinal item in the handshake was that as the political leaders, we agree on the interests of the country. So when Honorable Raila speaks, and Honorable Kalonzo speaks, and Honorable Mudavadi was the first person to support the 8%. So if you are a member of the ANC, unless you don't have a hierarchy, Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, yes, so all our leaders, all of us together, we know what our people are getting. What we have agreed as a House, please, for our national interest, not only now, even in the future. Tomorrow, if there will be an insecurity in Turkana, let us all come together, let us solve national issues, and we move together. I beg to support the budget.
Can the member who is picking water this early in the morning also sit?
Sorry, Speaker, I second.
Honourable members, I propose the question, which is that this House adopts a report of the Budget and Appropriations Committee on the supplementary estimates for the financial year 2018-2019, laid on the table of the House today, Thursday, September 20th, 2018, and pursuant to the provisions of Article 223 of the Constitution, and standing under number 243, approves 1, a reduction of the total recurrent expenditure for financial year 2018-2019 by Kenya shillings 9,063,228,418 in respect to the votes as contained in the attached schedule. 2, a reduction of the total capital expenditure for financial year 2018-2019 by Kenya shillings 28,540,434,000 in respect to the votes as contained in the attached schedule. 3, an overall reduction in the total budget for financial year 2018-2019 by Kenya shillings 37,603,662,418 in respect to the votes as contained in the schedule. 4, an increase of Kenya shillings 1.5 billion to the judiciary budget. And 5, that the attached schedule forms the basis of the enactment of the Supplementary Appropriations Act 2018-2019. Leader of the Minority Party.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to remind my colleagues that we have been attacked left, right, and center by the political analysts and economic experts that we don't engage our mind so seriously on budgetary issues. And I would request that we take this advantage of this time, that we debate this supplementary budget soberly, so that we can take responsibility after we will have passed the supplementary budget estimates. Having said that, Mr. Speaker, I stand here to support the report of the Budget and Appropriations Committee on the Supplementary Budget Estimates 1 of 2018-2019. Mr. Speaker, first I want to start with admission that I think we need to recognize that as a country we are facing tough financial economic times. We have reached a point where we have to really think how to maintain our financial integrity as a country. Mr. Speaker, if we are projecting as a country to collect 1.9 trillion, and that is just a projection, it may be realized, it may not be realized. Experience has proved that previously we have never realized the projected revenue. And therefore, chances are that we may not collect 1.9 trillion. But assuming we do, Mr. Speaker, the debt repayment alone will consume about 870 billion shillings. I know there will be what we call amortization of external debts and domestic debt rollover, but still, in balancing terms, you can safely say that as a country we are going to pay back or repay debts at 870 billion. The salaries are estimated in this country to consume about 640, 650 billion shillings. If you add that to the debt repayment, you are already hitting close to 1.5 trillion shillings. Then if you transfer 314 billion shillings to our 47 counties, then you are in a sense saying you are spending 1.8 trillion plus on both debt repayment, paying salaries, and also transfers to the counties. If the projection was 1.9 trillion, Mr. Speaker, simple arithmetic would put it that as a country we have less than 100 million to spend on other development matters. But Mr. Speaker, if you then transfer CDF at the rate of about 35 billion, then you'd see we are already consuming entire revenue collection, or rather ordinary revenue that we collect as a country. Then that therefore means that we have no money for development. Having said that, Mr. Speaker, what Treasury is admitting late in the day is that we have some obligations with other development partners. We have obligations even by people who loaned us money through Eurobonds, those who we get money from in terms of syndicated loans, and these obligations would put at risk our integrity or financial integrity as a country. If it does that, then two things are likely to happen. One, you may lose out in getting any money from the development partners or get any loan out there. Two, even if you are to get it, you can get it at a high cost. Hence, again, pressure on us as a country. If you are running a company, Mr. Speaker, with such predicaments, you would have the options of either injecting more capital to it, if you have, to help it move, or you sell it altogether. I don't know how many of us are ready to sell Kenya altogether and realize proceeds, and we divide probably the dividend, and we look for somewhere else to live. Mr. Speaker, having said that, then it therefore means that as a country now, we must cut on our budget. We must cut the cloth to fit our sizes as a country. Hence, the need to take some austerity measures. And as a party, we pronounced ourselves that we are going to ask the country to take real austerity measures. Now, Mr. Speaker, quickly, I want to just mention some of the reductions. Mr. Speaker, one is that what the Treasury had recommended, there are amendments that we have made in the Committee of Parliament, National Assembly. Number one is the CDF. I want to put it very clear. It is not that we have not touched CDF, but we are putting CDF to the statutory provision of 2.5% of 1.33 trillion, which brings it to 33.3 or thereabout billion. Mr. Speaker, on the Women Affirmative Action Fund for the women reps, Mr. Speaker, this was disaster. I don't know where the Treasury got this idea of doing away with that fund altogether. But what we have done, actually I want to correct, I think the provision last year was 2.3 billion. 2 billion that year. We added it to 2.3 billion this time. We are now putting at 2.1. So my calculation is that it has been reduced by 200 million, which means we have added on top of what was given last year by 100 million. So, Mr. Speaker, on the parliamentary budget, what we did, and this also needs to go out clearly, because I know this is likely to be picked. What we did was Treasury was, as opposed to other government ministries, Treasury wanted to reduce parliamentary budget by close to 30–40%, for reasons we don't know. What we have done is, like all government departments, except judiciary, we have reduced O&M by 16% across the board. Parliament, executive, but Parliament we were very careful. Just like executive, they are not touching emoluments, because you can't touch salaries. We are also saying, Parliament, don't touch emoluments. So that is what we have done. There is nothing that we have done which is different from what is done for the executive. So I don't think there is anything to be ashamed of here. What we have done is just to rationalize, cut across the board O&M for both the executive and the legislature, but on personal emoluments, cushion it for all the departments. Mr. Speaker, I would have said more. If you allow me 1 minute, I will say two things. We have also reduced 600 million from the Ministry of Education on infrastructure, because this money is not being distributed fairly. But we have left it at 1.5 to think about it in future. Finally, on the roads, and I want to also ask members, because that is very important. On the roads, remember, we decided to put direct budgetary allocation of 8.7 billion. But there is the usual road maintenance levy. The information that is there is that the roads maintenance levy is going to move upwards to 11 billion, which, if you calculate, would translate to about 35 million per constituency. And therefore, because of the times that we are in, we decided to leave that direct allocation to the roads to the road sector. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I support this supplementary appropriation.
Who is raising on a point of order? Who is raising a point of order? Vincent Kemose. What's your point of order?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity. Mr. Speaker, if you look at...
Point of order. Point of order, eh?
Yes, I'm raising the point of order, Mr. Speaker.
Yes.
From the report, the committee recommendations, they have spoken about the schedules. That is Roman 1, Roman 2, and Roman 5. Mr. Speaker, I'm begging you to direct that we be given those schedules so that we look at them and we be informed before we proceed with further debate, Mr. Speaker.
Are you not looking at the particular order paper that is attaching the... It is there. Okay, the clerk's office, Sergeant at Arms, please supply all the members. I know they are still being printed. Remember, I did explain that we even extended the time by an extra 10 minutes to allow the Secretariat to print as many copies of the order paper as possible. Chair, Committee on Administration.
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I rise to support the card. And Honorable Speaker, I commend the Committee of Budget for the work they have done, because where we are as a nation, the economy is not so good right now, and what the committee has done, I believe, Honorable Speaker, it will help us to move on as a nation. And Honorable Speaker, my Committee of Administration, National Security, do support the CAT, and in vote 1011, that is the presidency, and vote 1021, State Department for Interior, and vote 1023, the State Department for Correctional Services, vote 1024, State Department for Immigration and Citizen Services. Honorable Speaker, as a committee, of course, we have some issues which were concerned because of the police, especially the Department of Crime. Because, Honorable Speaker, it is my prayer that when economy changes, we'll be able to do something for the crime department. They have started a very good journey to start, especially to deal with the economic crimes in the country, and also to help infrastructuring the collection of revenue. So, Honorable Speaker, as we move, it's my prayer that the budgets available will be able to support the Department of Crime to do the very noble job they are doing right now to change even what is needed for people who really need to pay their taxes and the people who are committing a lot of crime in the economy, which is also affects what we are through today. Honorable Speaker, I do support the changes which are mentioned by the committee by the budget. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker.
Member for Mwingi Central. Mwingi Central.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to contribute on the motion on appropriation bill.
No, this is not appropriation bill.
Supplementary.
It's supplementary.
Yes, supplementary bill. Mr. Speaker, where I'm coming from, Mwingi Central constituency, I was sent by my constituents to come and say that they do not want an increment on their living standards. And Mr. Speaker, increasing taxation on petroleum products.
Relevance. This is supplementary. You see, honor members, that is why I told you to listen to the motion as it was being moved and seconded. Now, so that you know, you also what it is you are talking.
Mr. Speaker, I stand guided.
Yes, please.
I stand guided.
It's the estimates.
Mr. Speaker.
Yes.
Mr. Speaker, CNDF touches on the constituency level, the common mwananchi. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, I do not support the reduction of CDF. Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I do not support the reduction of affirmative action fund. Mr. Speaker, I do not support reduction of parliamentary budget, because that is where I belong. Mr. Speaker, we would rather reduce spending on government departments and not the parliament. Mr. Speaker, we have seen a lot of mismanagement of government resources. We have seen, for example, in the last formation of government, there was creation of CASs. The CASs increased spending in government. Mr. Speaker, we also saw recently the President announcing that police will be given new uniforms. We have not seen that reduction, because instead of giving a police new uniforms, they should stay with their old uniforms and put that money in the development budget. Mr. Speaker, I rise to oppose the recommendations by the Budget Committee.
Well, honor members, you know, every member is at liberty to express themselves. So according to the member for Mwingi Central, you'd rather the police be in patrolling here nude. So anyhow, Honorable Kimunya, because whether they are new or old, even new ones also get, even the old ones get worn out. So Honorable Kimunya, but the member is within his right. What is his point of order? What is the point of order, Honorable Lomenen? What's your point of order?
Mr. Speaker, thank you for giving me this opportunity. I want you to guide us, Mr. Speaker. The members who have signed this report are 13. They did not meet the threshold. They are not even 50%. They are not even. So, Mr. Speaker, even before we debate this report, is it properly? Is it properly in order? Is it supposed to be in this house? Mr. Speaker, guide us on that, because I'm seeing 13 signatures here.
Honorable Ishongwa. Honorable Ishongwa.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, it's good to appreciate that the Honorable Lomenen is a second-term MP. And I'm sure he knows that the quorum for the Budget and Appropriations Committee is 9 members for the committee to be able to transact business. Number 2, Honorable Speaker. Secondly, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable members, you know, you just look at your standing orders, so that even as you shout no or yes, you know, so that the people you represent can see you shout no when there is something, or you just shout no because it is fashionable to shout no. Yes, I mean, the chair is explaining.
Honorable Speaker, I was saying, secondly, it's important to appreciate that the members of the Budget and Appropriations Committee did dedicate a lot of their time yesterday, and we truly appreciate that. We were finishing this report some minutes to midnight last night. We had not had dinner, and therefore a few of our members had actually stepped out before signing for adoption. However, Honorable Speaker, the same members of the Budget and Appropriations Committee are in this House. If there is any member of the Budget and Appropriations Committee, or indeed any member of this House who has a different opinion other than what is on the report, is at liberty to say it. The members of the Budget and Appropriations Committee, if there is any who would not have agreed with the contents of the report, is also at liberty to file a dissenting report that is not there. Therefore, Honorable Speaker, I beg to advise Honorable Lemenin.
Honorable members, so that you know this is a serious business. It's estimates. So I would really plead with you, those of you who have not familiarized themselves, even in your second term, with the standing orders. Read the standing order number 199, subsection 2. And for the information of the member for Turkana South, I have the list of the members of the Budget and Appropriations Committee who were present at their meeting yesterday. Forget. Honorable Omenen. Any further altercation on this, out. Because standing on, honorable members, listen. I'll read this for, honorable members, this is the National Assembly. These are the clear provisions. Honorable members, these are the clear provisions of the Standing Order 199. It reads, the report, honorable members, you know, this is certainly not a county assembly. The report of a select committee, having been adopted by a majority of the members, shall be signed by the chairperson on behalf of the committee. That is that's Standing Order 199, subsection 2. So, honorable members, the signing, I have the list of all the members. The signing, and please don't expect me to begin doing secretarial work from the chair. Surely, honorable members, if you have a reason or other that you don't want to debate this motion, please raise substantive issues. Not a matter really as simple as this. So the report is properly before the House. The Honorable Kemunya.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to support this report of the committee and to congratulate the committee for working overtime to get this matter sorted out in the limited time that they had. And Mr. Speaker, because I don't have much time, I just want to lay down some basic principles that can help members appreciate where we are. And the first thing is obviously that a budget is only a projection. Until you get the money, it's purely paper. And what we actually had, we had an over-exaggerated budget that could not match the revenues that were required to finance it. So having realized that, the natural thing is you then have to go back and work on your expenditure because that is what you have control over. We actually don't have control over the revenues. Anything could happen. The fundamentals could change. The environment could change. The global economies could change. And hence, if we are not conservative on our revenues and continue thinking that we can project to spend a lot, we end up putting ourselves in debt. So the first thing we need to appreciate is that whatever projections have been given to us could even change even next month, could even change the month after that, if more revenue is realized, because there will be more money available to finance extra expenditure. If revenue is not realized, the expenditures could also be rationalized further down, and we must accept that. I know there's talk that perhaps we are conserving what is dear to us, but I want to look at it from a different angle. Indeed, CDF has been maintained. The law requires that CDF is at least 2.5%. So there's nothing about parliamentary that Parliament has conserved money for itself and not cut elsewhere. That's what the law says. It's minimum 2.5%. The law also says you cannot deduct people's salaries once you've already committed. There are contractual obligations that have to be met. So again, we are not doing anything here because of our salaries or because of any other salaries. It's the legal commitment that have been entered. The other item I just wanted to mention is obviously that you cannot, even as you think of, like putting speed governors on vehicles to cut down on speed, you cannot then
being given out in equity way. That is something that can be dealt with within management. And therefore, it would be unreasonable to hit the budgets that affects Kenyans. Kenyans outside there, for instance, when it comes to education, they solely depend on government and CDF for building of infrastructure in the schools. So when you attack it, then it means that you are not within the listening of the Kenyans. Honorable Speaker, I also saw the budget of the Teacher Service Commission affected. This country is lacking insofar as teachers' employment is concerned. And therefore, why would we go a step further to hit on areas that are required? And therefore, Mr. Speaker, I think that the proposals before us are not good for Kenyans. And moving forward, I would also want to tell the House that I'm not happy when the leadership within the House directs the motion on these budget allocations and proposals to mean that if the House and the members' interests have been taken care of, then we can leave the rest of the Kenyans to suffer with the taxes. That impression was very, very wrong, because outside there it will look like immediately we got what we thought was correct in terms of the CDF, in terms of other emoluments, then we left the ordinary mwananchi to suffer. So, Honorable Speaker, without much ado, I want to ask that moving forward, I can also see the mood in the House is set to make a determination of this, so that the members can move forward and look at the second motion, which is to look at the memorandum that was brought by the President into the House. And therefore, I beg to oppose in totality these proposals.
The Chair, Justice and Legal Affairs Committee. Honourable members, let us debate the motion before us. The supplementary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to support this motion. And Mr. Speaker, as I support this motion, I also want to thank the members of the Budget Committee for having a short time. And Mr. Speaker, we're able to table the report today for us to deal with this very important issue. Mr. Speaker, there's a lot of wide consultation, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable members, I can only hear what the chair of Justice and Legal Affairs Committee is saying. I know it is important to consult, but please, just lower the decibels.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to support this motion, and I want to refer members to the increment, Mr. Speaker, of 1.5 billion to the judiciary, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, our constitution requires that we have a high court in every county. Mr. Speaker, we have over 72 law courts across the country, Mr. Speaker, in various levels of development. In my county, Mr. Speaker, for example, in Gabarnet, I have a high court which is already built, but with a record of 40%. And many other courts in our country where we need funding to complete, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, access to justice by the Kenyan people, Mr. Speaker, is critical. As we deal with the economy, Mr. Speaker, we deal with the Big Four agenda, Mr. Speaker, the access to justice is an enabling item. We can never be able, Mr. Speaker, to develop the country if the citizens, businessmen, are unable to access justice, Mr. Speaker, to resolve issues of dispute in business and so on. And so, Mr. Speaker, allocating 1.5 billion to judiciary, Mr. Speaker, to complete the construction of our courts, Mr. Speaker, is a move in the right direction. Mr. Speaker, this 1.5 billion is actually a donor funding from the World Bank. And Mr. Speaker, we want to encourage the judiciary. And Mr. Speaker, we have had sessions with the judiciary, with the Chief Justice, with the Registrar of the High Court. And Mr. Speaker, we have agreed with them that within the next few months, Mr. Speaker, they should be able, Mr. Speaker, to conclude the construction of these courts, so that then we move to the other counties, Mr. Speaker, where we already don't have High Court. Of course, Mr. Speaker, I also note from the report that we have, as a sector, taken away some substantial amount of money from the Office of the Attorney General, from the Office of the Registrar of Political Parties, Witness Protection Agency, Kenya National Commission on Human Rights, and Mr. Speaker, Commission on Administrative Justice. Mr. Speaker, my plea is that in our next supplementary, Mr. Speaker, these are critical agencies, Mr. Speaker, which are also important in ensuring that Kenyans access justice. And Mr. Speaker, I will be requesting, as we move perhaps to the next supplementary, that Mr. Speaker, funding should be given to those institutions because they are very important, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I would like to call upon my colleagues, as you go to your counties, as you go to your constituencies, Mr. Speaker, I want to request them to visit these courts which are being constructed, so, Mr. Speaker, so that we move forward as a country and ensure that our people, Mr. Speaker, access justice in our respective counties and constituencies. Mr. Speaker, I want to thank you.
Honourable members, nominated member Osoti.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity to contribute to this motion. Mr. Speaker, I must start by commending the Budget Committee for the good work they have done within the shortest time possible. But Mr. Speaker, I think they would have done better, because looking at the figures and comparing with their past reports, Mr. Speaker, there are some votes which I think the Budget Committee would have looked at and probably harmonize the budget to reduce the budget gap. And I want to give an example, Mr. Speaker, of TVET, which is vote number 1064. Mr. Speaker, it is not very clear in the estimate what the details around TVET, because in the initial estimate, the figure that was given was 7.4 billion shillings. Initial figure that was given was 2.3 billion shillings. But in the estimate, we are talking about 7.4 billion shillings. Mr. Speaker, this is a huge variation, which they would have looked at it to consider saving more money there. Mr. Speaker, I have also noticed that there is a reduction on the budget for the ICT, about 5.9 billion shillings. Mr. Speaker, I'm concerned because we cannot talk about the big four without ICT as a driver. We cannot talk about innovation in this country if we are reducing the budget for ICT. And I think this budget was meant for the Konza City, which those of us who are in the ICT committee, we were very glad that now the government had taken a positive step to ensure that this country innovates. But that has further been reduced, and that, Mr. Speaker, will mean that we will not take the project on Konza City. Mr. Speaker, I'm also looking at vote number 1081, which is Health Policy Standards and Regulation. This has been allocated over 11 billion. But if you look at last financial year, it had 1.7 billion. I think we need to be very clear on what constitutes the health policy standards and regulation. And Mr. Speaker, I think in the next budget cycle, the budget estimates must give us finer details so that we can interrogate further. Giving huge figures to votes which are not very clear, not itemized, it is very confusing and is actually retarding the performance of Parliament in terms of offering budget oversight. Mr. Speaker, I have also concerned on vote on 1185, the National Social Safety Net. Whereas, Mr. Speaker, I agree that this program is important because it helps our elders and other disadvantaged groups. There has been a huge increase from last year. Last year, the figure was 5.8 billion. But now, we are asking for more than that. I think we need a clear explanation about this, considering that when we go to the villages, elders tell us that they don't get this money, or this money comes late. So some of those votes are votes that can be used to fill the budget gap. There is also a vote on 1023, correctional services, which I think is to do with prisoners. The figure...
Chair, Education Committee.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to support this motion, and I want to thank the Budget and Appropriation Committee. First of all, Mr. Speaker, the committee came up to rationalize the budget and make sure that non-essentials, especially in government sectors like teas and even entertainment allowances, most of it were reduced. Mr. Speaker, I want to look at vote 1064. Mr. Speaker, it is indicated that there was a reduction of 1.3 billion, especially on the recruitment of teachers, on trainers. This one, I want to say that the government did well, especially in building technical training institutes. And it has gone ahead to recruit over 2,000 teachers for technical training institutes. I will only urge the Budget and Appropriation Committee in the second supplementary budget to reinstate this amount so that enough teachers will be recruited in technical training institutes. Mr. Speaker, on the laptop program, I want to note that this is one of the pet projects of the Jubilee government, and it has been implemented very well for the last 2-3 years. This program needs also, I know there is a reduction of almost 5 billion, but this reduction also needs to be reinstated in a second SAP so that it succeeds very well. Mr. Speaker, I want to know that in infrastructure for schools, this year, unlike last year it was 1.5 billion. This year it is 1.6 billion, meaning that they have an additional almost 100 billion. And I think this one will go a long way in ensuring that the 100% transition in schools is attained. In fact, Mr. Speaker, the building and construction of schools across the country has been going on very well. That budget for 2.1 billion that had been indicated earlier on had actually served well. On Teacher Service Commission, I think there is a very small reduction, which is actually it's on rationalization, 67 million. So, Mr. Speaker, I rise to support this rationalization program, and I support the motion. Thank you.
Member for Suna East.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I stand to support this motion, the appropriation motion, Mr. Speaker, supplementary, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to remind members, or I want to put to the attention of members, Mr. Speaker, where we are coming from as a parliament, Mr. Speaker, before the new constitution came into place, Mr. Speaker. We are coming as traditionally as a parliament, Mr. Speaker, where parliament had no role completely in budget making, Mr. Speaker, where they were allowed only to change 1%, Mr. Speaker, of the total estimate, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Kimunya, Honorable Kimunya is here, Mr. Speaker, to testify to, that he used to come to the House here, read the budget and the estimates. It used to be a big day for him with some budget that can resonate well with the House, Mr. Speaker, as we sit today, Mr. Speaker. Look at, Mr. Speaker, the issue of CDF. That is very important matter to members of Parliament, Mr. Speaker. And there was a reduction of 5 billion shillings from that fund, Mr. Speaker. But in their own wisdom, 6 billion. They said they're neither going to increase or decrease, but what they are going to do, they are going to adhere to the 2.5% statutory requirement of the law, that CDF must be 2.5% of the revenue, Mr. Speaker. And that came to 33 billion, Mr. Speaker. They just applied the law as required, Mr. Speaker. The committee did that. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, go ahead. Mr. Speaker, the other issue is about the women rep funds, Mr. Speaker. 2 billion shillings were removed, Mr. Speaker. But the Budget Committee, through the Chairman, Honorable Ishungwa, in their own wisdom, Mr. Speaker, brought back that fund to take care about the affirmative action programs, Mr. Speaker, that are in place in this country. Mr. Speaker, I beseech members this morning, Mr. Speaker, to support this supplementary budget, whichever side of the House you belong to. Because, Mr. Speaker, there was no any other way than the way this committee has done to this, the justice they have done to this supplementary budget, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, when we were given an opportunity as a House to look into this budget of this country, Mr. Speaker, look, there is 1.5 billion shillings, Mr. Speaker, that has been taken back to the judiciary. The other day, the Chief Justice was complaining in a public forum, in a press conference, that he has no money to fund courts, new buildings have stalled, Mr. Speaker. Now, under this supplementary estimate, Mr. Speaker, there is 1.5 billion shillings for the judiciary, Mr. Speaker. There is more money to the DPP so that corruption can be fought, and there is more money that comes back to the exchequer, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as a member of this House, Mr. Speaker, I want to plead with the members that let us pass this motion, and in the afternoon we pass the appropriation bill, Mr. Speaker, so that we are seen to be people who take care of the interests of both the people of the Republic, and the government or the executive that we have been given responsibility to legislate on their behalf. Mr. Speaker, it is very popular to say no. We have been in the no camp for many years. Some of us, we went to jail for saying no. But reality, you cannot close your eyes on reality, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Sholei.
Honorable Speaker, thank you for the opportunity. I rise to support this motion by the Budget and Appropriations Committee, and I'd like to commend the committee for the good work they have done. I wish to say that the budget had been passed by this very House with a deficit. Therefore, this supplementary budget that has been presented before this House is not austerity measures, but rationalization of our budget to fit together with the revenue that this country has. If this country does not plug its deficit, then we will have problems with our development partners such as IMF. Remember that we have a fiscal deficit agreement with them, and therefore if there is a deficit, then what will happen is that we shall lose the support of donor funding, because any unfinanced items will cause public debt to rise. And if public debt rises, then the shilling shall fall, and all of us in this country shall be in trouble. And for that reason, I wish to support. And as I want to say that, Mr. Speaker, I did hear from Honorable Mbadi and others that they had been, and also from the chair of the Budget Committee, that there had been an attempt by the National Treasury to do away with the National Government Affirmative Action Fund. And I want to say this in no uncertain terms to Henry Rotich. Don't you dare touch the National Government Affirmative Action Fund. If you do, you will be sending a message that this country does not care, or that this government does not care for people living with disabilities, for orphans, for the vulnerable women and youth in our society. And I want to also tell Henry Rotich in no uncertain terms that, remember, women are 52% of this country. We pay taxes and we vote. And if anyone wants to have a political future in this country, I think the women are getting empowered. We shall mobilize ourselves and say, you don't need our 52% vote if you won't even support us with such meager resources. Remember, what has happened here is that the CDF has not been reduced. In fact, it has been increased. At 101, it was at the required 2.5%. It has been increased to 110. And I do not begrudge our members of parliament that you can have the CDF because what you do is important. But what I'm asking is, please do not touch the National Affirmative Action Fund. And I hope this message, and all the women, I'm asking that you support me to ensure that Henry Rotich does not attempt to ever do that again. It is unacceptable, and he has no right to do that, because all of us are also members of this country. And with that, I beg to support this motion. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Kadhiani.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity. Mr. Speaker, today I stand here as a proud member of the opposition of this country in the National Assembly. And I want to say that basically, Mr. Speaker, I speak with a heavy heart, but a very clear conscience. This country, we have citizens, and the citizens have spoken. Citizens have been speaking for the last 2-3 weeks, and their position is very clear. Mr. Speaker, we are between a rock and a hard place. But how did we get there? This House passed an appropriations bill. In that appropriations bill, we spend money. Later on, when the finance bill came to this House, we made very deliberate attempts to, of course, protect the Kenyan citizens, and came up with a finance bill that did not give enough money on the appropriations that we had already passed in the House. But, Mr. Speaker, today, we have an opportunity to correct this situation. And my proposal is this. Kenya has an extremely ambitious budget. An extremely ambitious budget. And this budget, Mr. Speaker, is of course, it is big because we have issues to do with debt repayments. We have issues to do with duplication. You all know that our National Assembly here and the Senate almost do the same jobs. The Senate and the county assemblies do the same job. DPP, DCI, ESCC, they kind of duplicate each other. So, Mr. Speaker, it is important to look at some of these issues with a view of ensuring that we provide direction to the country. Mr. Speaker, the government has a lot of wastage, trips, huge convoys on leadership. We had recently the president himself talking about provision of extra police uniforms. So, Mr. Speaker, I think all of us are aware also about the corruption that is going on in our ministries, NYS and others, Ministry of Health. So, Mr. Speaker, I think now we need to figure out solutions. And I want to propose the following. First and foremost, I support the reduction of the budget. But, Mr. Speaker, I wish that the Budget and Appropriations Committee had reduced the budget to a level where we do not require to further tax Kenyans so that we can meet that budget. So even as I support this one, I wish it was more than what we are reducing. I wish we reduced further so that we don't seem like we want to save money for Parliament, we want to save money for NYS, because that is what many people have said. I wish the budget was reduced across the board so that in the afternoon we do not discuss issues of increasing whatever taxation on our people. So, Mr. Speaker, I wish there was time for us to have proposed amendments and discuss them. I think we are between a rock and a hard place. But as a member of the opposition, Mr. Speaker, on this particular one, I oppose.
Member for Kiharu.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this chance. And Mr. Speaker, as a new member of parliament, I especially feel very misrepresented by the utterances that were made by the majority leader. Because, Mr. Speaker, as we debate this matter, we are just rotating around very minute issues insofar as percentage is concerned. Mr. Speaker, the leader of majority talked about PSC budget, talked about mileage, talked about house allowance, and Mr. Speaker, as a member of parliament, I never vied to be member for Kiharu to come here so that I get mileage. Mr. Speaker, I never vied to be member for Kiharu to come here so that I get emolument, so that I get exceeded allowances, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, we have to stop misleading the Kenyan people by just rotating and parading this matter like it's just a matter about us members of parliament. Mr. Speaker, the issue before us is about Kenyans, not about us. And Mr. Speaker, the issues we should be discussing, and those are the issues I will discuss, is not just about CDF, because CDF definitely, as far as Kenyans are concerned, is attached to us. But Mr. Speaker, the real issues is about roads. The real issues is about REA, Rural Electrification Authority. The real issues, Mr. Speaker, is about last mile connectivity project. Mr. Speaker, I would wish and request my colleagues, let us not send the wrong signal out there. The issue is not about us. The issue is not about GAF, because all those issues cumulatively, Mr. Speaker, is less than 5% of the issues before us today. But Mr. Speaker, even on such, as an economist, I have gone through what the committee brought here today. And Mr. Speaker, because I know so many Kenyans are watching, the no's and the yeses in this session is not a no or a yes about 16% VAT. And therefore, whether we say no, whether we say yes, it is not about the popular matter that Kenyans are waiting for out there. It is just a matter of rearranging government money from this department to the other. And on that rearrangement, Mr. Speaker, it is very good that you tell the Kenyan people, we are not actually increasing CDF. We are reducing CDF from where we wanted it to be, Mr. Speaker. But, Mr. Speaker, it is good that we communicate very clearly that we had heavy rains in this country and all our roads, especially the feeder roads, were destroyed by the heavy rains. Mr. Speaker, the issue is, if we support this, it is about the matter of postponing making those roads. But Mr. Speaker, as an economist, on this report, I support it. But in the afternoon, it could be different.
Well, I suppose the member is at liberty to use the language he feels comfortable with. Member for Kilifi North.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. From the onset, Mr. Speaker, I want to say that I oppose this report. And I want to say this. The cuts in estimates that the chairman has talked about, the 16%, I consider them very superfluous, because if you reduce government recurrent by 16%, but if you also continue to hold the items that spend the 16%, then what you're doing is you're still burdening government. If you look at economics, it's very clear that if you have a building that costs you a certain amount of money to put it up, you also need a consequential 25% to run it. Today we have very many cars that guzzle a lot of petrol in this country that are run by government. We still have a lot of facilities in the government, and the president, when he was finance minister, once said that let's dispose of government assets to save money first and also to create austerity measures. But the austerity measures that are being talked about here is just about cutting costs. It's not about saving costs within what we already have. I believe very strongly that if we go ahead to look at these areas, instead of having ministers that are lazy and every time the president asks for anything, you either cut here or you increase tax. That's the only way this government is run. But I believe very strongly that we can look at offloading some of the assets that government has to ensure that we have more money to put in roads and to have more money to put to hire teachers, and we have more money to do other things for this government. Mr. Speaker, the gap, the financing gap that is proposed, that is here, and that these cuts are being seen as if we rob Parliament, then we can take care of Kenyans. That is the wrong message that is being sent. What we are saying is that there is better austerity measures that the Budget and Appropriations Committee could do to ensure that we have money enough. But, Mr. Speaker, what we have is just a very easy thing: spend the night, cut costs here, cut CDF, cut parliamentary budget and all that. But I think the economists in this country can save this country from the huge government that we have. This government is one of the biggest in Africa. It has so many things that are put together. Today, before this current government, we didn't have CISs, but every CIS that comes in with a budget of over 5 million a month. If you multiply that by the number of ministries that we have, you have an over increase on expenditure in this country. That's the first thing that economists say: President, cut this first, so that we can save money for the country. Mr. Speaker, I would like to say that there are certain things when you cut. For example, if you remove TVET, the government has a deliberate program to empower Kenyans. Today you are saying cut TVET. Areas like where I come from, we don't have enough teachers. You are saying reduce money for employing teachers. So where is this? What is the vision of the economy of this country? What is the vision of this government in terms of public service and in terms of the economic and fiscal responsibility of this country? Mr. Speaker, I oppose this report. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Honorable Sankok, what is your point of order now?
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. I'm standing on the point of order 95. Reading from the mood of the House, we are repeating the same things. Honorable Speaker, I beg that you put the question. Yes. No, nikusema nini?
The member is not even here.
Well, honourable members, well, I appreciate that. You remember you passed a motion earlier on that on general debates of supply, you will have 2 hours, 15 minutes. So you must remember that. And that's why every member was given 5 minutes. So, and that's why I told you, sometimes it's not good to interrupt members. If you have only 5 minutes, please. If you interrupt a member, then they lose their thought processes. You destabilize them. You know, it becomes like those areas in North and South Carolina where there was Hurricane Florence. So we don't want members to be hit by something like that, Hurricane Florence, and those other typhoons in China. So, honourable members, I get the member for Garsen. Member for Garsen.
Asante sana, Speaker, kwa kunipatia hii fursa. Mimi nawakilisha watu wa Garsen kwa maoni yao. Kitu wa kwanza, kule Garsen kuna shida ya stima. Vile naona bajeti ya stima yote imeondolewa. Kitu kingine, Speaker, mambo ya Equalization Fund. Equalization Fund iko katika katiba ya Kenya na inafaidi watu wa sehemu kame.
We have those quotes. The truth is that even as we speak, Honorable Speaker, the matter which was before court in Homa Bay concerning the unfortunate murder of Sharon Otieno has had to come to Nairobi. Why, Mr. Speaker? Because we have no court where the accused and the judiciary can be secure as they do the thing. Because it is proposed that the judiciary is to be given money. Mr. Speaker, I know my position in the afternoon will not change, but I want to request members that for the sake of this budget, the development budget of the judiciary, we support this particular one and we move forward. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chair of Health. Chair of Health.
So that where we'll reach and meet the health. With this, I support the motion. Thank you, sir.
You know, the member who is coming to the dispatch box, the member for, as we wait, because we are almost getting to the time, the member for Bomachoge. Honourable members, you gave, remember you are the ones who voted to have this motion for 2 hours, 15 minutes. You gave 2 hours, 15 minutes. So when the time comes, there's no more debate. You'll go to the next step, which is Committee of Supply, which again is further debate. Those of you who may have this, who may know how this operates, it's still an opportunity for you to debate, but in a much more focused manner, going through, looking at the proposals with regard to various departments and programs. Now, honourable members, it's very difficult for me to be able to hear what members are saying, and then also tete. Now, now, no. There's no problem with a member rising on a point of order. There's now, honourable member says, Honourable Otiende Omolo, what is your point of order?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, understanding order number 207, and indeed in line with your direction. Mr. Speaker, understanding order 207, particularly subsection 6, all the chairpersons of committee are by right invited to the, to the committee on budgeting. And the minutes we have show that most of them did. Mr. Speaker, when then the limited time of 2 hours is taken by most of the chairmen, where then does that not rob us of our opportunity to contribute on this? Mr. Chairman, Mr. Speaker, I urge that the chairpersons must be taken to have contributed during the meeting of the committee, so that the remaining time can be spent by the rest of the members. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Obviously, the Honourable Otiende Omolo, you looked extremely agitated. And it is okay for you to feel so agitated because you're not a chair of any of the committees. But your point is well taken. Your point is well taken. And indeed, that's why majority of those who have contributed are not chairs of the committees. Majority. Please, it is good it's also good to know what it is I'm saying. I said majority. But the point raised by the Honourable Otiende Omolo is a valid one. It should not be taken as indicting the chairpersons who have contributed. But, honourable members, you had said 2 hours, 15 minutes. You can't say no. You passed the motion. And you say even what you did, you still don't want to go by what you passed. Honourable Chris Wamalwa, also, you see, and this is what is similarly the point being raised by the Honourable Otiende Omolo. Now, the way you sit in a row there, when all of you have an opportunity to speak, the other members behind you feel like they don't belong, So, Honourable Amalwa, when you see me pick a member behind you, please feel that they also have capacity to interrogate the motion. They are your members, and they belong validly and legitimately to the House. So they are members of the House, please. Honourable Amalwa. It is not that if you don't speak, this House will come down crumbling. No. I mean, you should have faith in your colleagues who are also contributing, Honourable Amalwa. And in any event, we are still proceeding with the business. Honourable members, I think the last, you see, this is the problem. When so many of you are come to consult us, sometimes I don't even know who last spoke. And I think the person who last spoke was from this side. You see, there's also the question of a few corners of the country. The member there, the member for, is it Bomachoge? Bomachoge. You could speak for a few minutes before the time ends.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Sir, I'm worried because
no, don't get worried. Contribute. Go straight to the motion. Your time is running.
Sir, I stand to oppose in zero effect this motion. Number one, I don't want to take more time. It's very much unfair. I want to acknowledge the Committee of Budget. It's doing good work. But my worry is it's reducing most critical areas affecting our Kenyans. If you see this reduction in this report, you will find at the moment Kenyans are crying very much heavy taxation. At the moment we are discussing a very important bill in the afternoon about zero. Everybody here is zero. Now, if you reduce the road network, if you reduce emergency intervention of roads by 8.7 million, remember a country without a road network in this country is not a developing country. If we can reduce CDF, you reduce affirmative action for women, you also come reduce electricity, then is that a country we're having? To me, I stand to oppose this in the strongest voice possible. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Now, honourable members, member for Tharaka, you have less than 3 minutes.
Thank you. Are taxed, and the money falls into the hands of corrupt individuals who actually misappropriate that particular money meant for development. We have also to avoid and run away from wastage of our funds. We ensure that whatever funds we do have are put into the correct usage, which is for the benefit of everyone. While I do support the report, it is very important to note that we, as a country...
The tenet of modern democracy is that there should be no taxation without representation. And that is why we are before this House. Mr. Speaker, I look at the report that we are debating, and I've listened very carefully to those who support and those who oppose. What comes to my mind, Mr. Speaker, is this. For the last 7 days or so, the media have been reporting on these deliberations in a way that is slanted against this House, not knowing the fact that this House is the one that can save the country. And I want to say that the committee under my good friend, Honorable Ichung'wah, has looked at the report that has put us under fire. The spotlight is on this House, arising from what came from the Treasury. And I wonder, Mr. Speaker, if it was not for this committee, and we left this alone in the hands of C.S. Rotich and his mandarins at the Treasury, where would the country be led? I've looked, Mr. Speaker, at what is in this report, and I've seen the difficulty that this House has got to undergo. We have got to toe the thin line between analyzing what we are able to raise and what we are able to spend. I've looked and I listened very carefully to the chairman of JLAC, Honorable Cheptum. Cheptum was talking about the difficulties in the judiciary. I listened to Honorable Kaluma. Mr. Speaker, having analyzed all this, I want to say that we have to take this with the pill that is bitter. I wish to support this report, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable members, in terms of the resolution passed by this House this morning, it is now time for the mover to reply. It is time for the mover to reply, and accordingly call upon him to do so. But of course, honourable members, just to alert you that even after this, we are still proceeding with the supply. So those members who have not spoken, you still have a chance to express yourself one way or other with regard to the supply department by department. So you've not completely lost out. So don't feel completely gloomy. Proceed.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. And allow me, Honourable Speaker, to thank the many members who have contributed, both those who have supported this motion and those who have raised their concerns, and I particularly note the concerns raised by Honourable Miremba Mboko, Honourable Osotsi, especially on the TVETs. It is indeed true that we did reduce the budget that was allocated to TVETs by $1 billion shillings, and that basically was money that we had allocated for hiring of teachers for the TVETs. What we have done in the spirit of rationalizing this budget is to look at how many of our technical training institutes are completed, equipped, and ready to admit students, and how many teachers they need. And we therefore left a budget of 1 billion shillings and taken away 1 billion shillings so that we don't hire teachers who have nowhere to be placed. As we roll out the budget and as more TTIs are completed, we will be able to reinstate this amount and be able to hire more teachers for this particular sector. The question Honourable Sotsi raised on increased allocations to the health department, you know the health sector is one of our Agenda 4 pillars in universal healthcare, and that is why you'll see there's an increased allocation in healthcare up to the tune of about 11 billion shillings. Honourable Speaker, the Konza City, again, as Honourable Sotsi said, is one of the areas that we reduced a figure of 400 million shillings, which was development towards the completion of Konza City. And again, as I said, Honourable Speaker, these are monies that should revenues increase, we are bound to be able to return them. And Honourable Speaker, it's important to mention to members that this is just but the first supplementary budget. We can do as many supplementary budgets as we want in the course of the financial year. But it was imperative this time, Honourable Speaker, because of the shortfall in revenue, to be able to have a supplementary budget that you cut part of our budget expenditure, and it is only reflective of the shortfall in revenue because of the issues that we'll be addressing this afternoon on the VAT bill. And therefore, Honourable Speaker, it's important also to mention, should the finance bill, whatever decision the House makes in the afternoon, should we not be able to raise even the 8% VAT on the finance bill, we would be forced to even do further budget cuts. And that is why it is very important, Honourable Speaker, that we do understand that, and I urge members to support this bill, this motion, Honourable Speaker, and support this report for us to be able to appropriate money in a way that our budget is balanced and we show the world that we are a country that has very good fiscal discipline. With that, Honourable Speaker, I beg to reply.
Honourable members, once again, because of the resolution of the House, you then proceed, in the morning, you proceed straight to the next order. So I'll call upon the clerk to call out the order.
Order number 11, Committee of Supply.
Order, members. Members, order. Order, members. Members, we are now in Committee of Supply. We are in Committee of Supply for the 2018-2019 supplementary estimates for the year ending 30th June 2019.
Vote 1011, the Presidency. Vote 1021, State Department for Interior. Vote 1023, State Department for Correctional Services. Vote 1024, State Department for Immigration and Citizen Services. Vote 1032, State Department for Devolution. Vote 1035, State Department for ASOL, arid and semi-arid areas. Vote 1041, Ministry of Defense. Vote 1052, Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Vote 1064, State Department for Vocational and Technical Training. Vote 1066, State Department for Early Learning and Basic Education.
Honorable members, order, members, order. I propose a question. I propose a question that the votes as read out be approved. Mover. Honorable Ishungwa. Honorable Lesonet, are you standing in for him?
Yeah, you move.
Madam Chair, I beg to move.
I propose a question that the supply granted for the services for the year ending 30th June 2019 in respect of the votes as read out be reduced as specified in the order paper. I'll go on to put the question, which is that the supply granted for the services for the year ending 30th June 2019 in respect of the votes as read out be reduced as specified in the order paper. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as of a contrary opinion say nay? Yes. The ayes have.
Ministry of Water Services and Sanitation. Vote 1108, Ministry of Environment and Forestry. Vote 1112, Ministry of Lands and Physical Planning.
Honorable members, I propose the question, which is that the votes as read out be approved.
National Assembly, vote 2061, Commission on Revenue Allocation. Vote 2071, Public Service Commission.
Honorable members, I propose a question that the votes as read out be approved. Mover.
Honorable Chairperson, I beg to move that the votes as read out be approved.
I propose a question that the supply
Continue. Ignore him.
that the supply granted for the services for the year ending 30th June 2019 in respect of the votes as read out, be reduced as specified in the order paper.
Put the question. Put the question.
I go on to put the question, which is that the supply granted for the services for the year ending 30th June 2019, in respect of the votes as read out, be reduced as specified in the order paper. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as of a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
Vote 2081, Salaries and Remuneration Commission. Vote 2091, Teachers Service Commission. Vote 2101.
Order, members. I now call upon the mover to move reporting. Chair.
Honorable Chairperson, I beg to move that the Committee of Supply do report to the House its consideration of the supplementary estimates for the financial year 2018-2019 and its approval thereof with amendments.
I go on to put the question for reporting, which is that the Committee of Supply do report to the House its considerations of the supplementary estimates for the financial year 2018-2019 and its approvals thereof with amendments. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as of a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
Chairperson.
Honorable Speaker, I beg to report that the Committee of the Supply has considered the supplementary estimates for the financial year 2018-2019, approved the same with amendments, and pursuant to the provisions of Article 223 of the Constitution of Kenya and Standing Orders 240, 240A, and 243, approves that the supply granted for the services for the year ending 30th June 2019 be reduced by a sum not exceeding Kenya shillings 37,603,662,418 in respect of the expenditure, recurrent and development for votes as approved in the schedule.
Mover.
Honorable Speaker, I beg to move that the House do agree with the Committee of Supply in its consideration of the supplementary estimates for the financial year 2018-2019, and pursuant to the provisions of Article 223 of the Constitution of Kenya and Standing Orders 240, 240A, and 243, approves that the supply granted for the services for the year ending 30th June 2019 be reduced by a sum not exceeding Kenya shillings 37,603,662,418 in respect of the expenditure, recurrent and development for votes as approved in the schedule. I also request Honorable Moses Lesonet, my able Vice Chair, to second the motion for agreement with the report of the Committee of Supply.
Honorable Lesonet.
I thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I second.
Honourable members, I propose a question, which is that the House do agree with the committee in the same report. Now, members, seems like the desire of the House that I put the question, which I hereby do. I put the question, which is that the House do agree with the committee in the same report. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as of the contrary opinion say nay? Nay. The ayes have it. Honourable members, please, it's good to understand. I think at this rate, honourable members, it looks like the more we get experience, the more we forget. I hope we don't. The member for Mavoko, once when I am on my feet, to also be whispering something to me. It's not possible, but you can follow. Honourable members, the net effect of what you've done now is having passed that motion on supply. This gives room for the Supplementary Appropriations Bill to be prepared, ready for tabling before the House this afternoon at 2:30 p.m. And just to avoid a situation whereby members may want to rise claiming to be technicians, this being a bill on supplementary estimate, you did that by passing the standing orders, and therefore there will be no need. Let's just deal with the appropriations bill when it is brought before the House, because now this paves the way for its publication, and there's not again time for, say, pre-publication scrutiny, consulting villagers and such like stuff. So please don't come. Nobody should come to address me on the issue, because deal with it now. And I would want it as soon as it is published. Those of you, I know there are many technicians now in that area. You can now start looking at it with a tooth comb. Therefore, honourable members, we had passed a motion that we would sit up to 1:30 p.m. subject to us completing the business, which the House has just concluded. Therefore, there being no other business, the House stands adjourned until 2:30 this afternoon.